Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Sleepless Cinematic Podcast, where we explore our shared love for watching and discussing movies recorded in the late after work hours, often in lieu of a good night's rest. I'm Julian.
I'm Madeline.
And I'm Emilio, and the three of us are colleagues at a Midtown Manhattan music school. Yes, music is what brings us together, but movies are what keep us together, talking at the end of the night. So we've decided to create some order to this ongoing trend and record these conversations, considering an overarching theme while we cycle through 5 distinct categorizable guidelines for engagement. This podcast is an evolving thing. Changes and tweaks here and there will most likely happen, but while we do it, you, the listener, can count on the three of us doing what we've grown to love, foregoing sleep for a discussion about movies every other week.
This week, we continue our current cycle of movies related to perceptions of sanity with a category we call Suggestion Box, where one of us elects a film for the group to discuss. At least one of us will be seeing this movie for the first time. In this case, it's 2 of us. And differing opinions may or may not be held among us, but they are certainly encouraged. And as I said, one person has seen this movie before.
That would be me.
Emilio has seen this, and today's film is Shutter Island, directed by Martin Scorsese.
Yes. One of his, I guess, later period films. I mean, he's had such a storied, long career that this one literally feels like maybe it came out a couple years ago, but it's already about, 10, 12 years old?
It's 13 years,
Yeah,
and it arrived at kind of an interesting point in his career where it's like, when you look at the broader arc of his career, it's kind of in a transitional time, I would say. At this point, this was his first fiction film in about 4 years since The Departed. And though it had been filmed quite a bit closer to the release of The Departed. And, it's sandwiched between that and then the fiction film that comes after it is Hugo.
Yeah, quite a departure.
Absolutely. To the point
so to
that
speak.
I forgot that was Scorsese, and I was like, I feel like Shutter Island is kind of the least Scorsese movie. And then my partner was like, well, Hugo comes next.
Yeah.
So he's definitely trying to stretch his legs a little bit. Although, I don't know, it's funny, watching this movie again, I was kind of reminded of the fact that I think Martin Scorsese also, he's kind of into seedier genre movies. Like, I watch this movie and I'm kind of reminded of a kind of movie that has simpler ambitions, something a little bit more like a Cape Fear, where it's really just sort of like a really well-made popcorn film.
It's not like the most prominent category of Scorsese films, but there is, definitely a category of like these great popcorn thrillers. I mean, these are definitely like on some level, like edge of your seat kind of creepy movies, and Cape Fear is one of them. Bringing Out the Dead, I think you'd put there too, which I also haven't seen.
Kind of a weirder movie, but I think, I think this one has a little bit more of a narrative thrust.
But then here we arrive at Shutter Island. And this, I think it's kind of the midway point between like that phase of his career that ends with The Departed, and then the one that kind of begins with The Wolf of Wall Street and goes on till today, where like from The Wolf of Wall Street to Silence to The Irishman to most recently Killers of the Flower Moon, there's something consistent about all of those movies. They're like around 3-hour epic dramas. At least in setting, they can be very different. In scenery, they can be very different. But in the sweep of their narratives, there's something very similar about them.
But he's a very busy guy in that he's not only directing films in this time, like he's also directing some television.
It's true.
He's doing a lot of producing during this time. So it's like, even though you have these films that I think you can kind of draw a connective thread in some ways, you also have like Vinyl and like Pretend It's a City.
Cool.
Have any of us seen Pretend It's a City?
I watched it all the way through.
Same.
It was, I think, very satisfying watch during COVID. And we've talked about before that the 3 of us live in New York City. And I think that was a very satisfying series to watch at a time when you could not go outside.
Yeah.
Really. So that was a way to kind of experience facets of the city that you weren't able to, like, that had changed in the previous year.
Yeah.
I have to admit, this is the first time I'm ever hearing of this.
Really?
Oh,
Yes.
wow.
Yeah, this is
Wow.
100%. Yeah. So I guess I have something to check out.
Do you
I had
know
no idea.
anything about it?
No, like not a thing.
So
when
it's-
you guys could be pulling my leg right now.
We're not.
Like I honestly, I'm just like, okay, pretend it's a city. I
Yeah,
had no
and I mean
idea.
it's not fiction. It's essentially it's Fran Lebowitz, like just in conversation.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay, I do
Yeah.
remember. This is the Fran Lebowitz, like, not like documentary, but just sort of like
Yeah.
her sort of talking about New York and her favorite. I think I remember
Yeah.
hearing
Yeah.
about this. Yeah, okay.
Yeah, and I mean, it was like kind of, I don't know if literally memed, but it was parodied at the time for being like, Fran Lebowitz shares some like kind of old timey hot take about New York, and then Martin Scorsese just bursts into laughter.
Yeah, his
On
laugh is
command.
maybe the best part of
Yeah.
of this series. And one thing that I think about is that she talks about how much she hates the like dog mosaic at the 23rd Street subway station.
Yeah, she definitely has opinions.
Yeah,
Yeah.
the quote from that series that I remember most vividly is from like the first episode where you see her narrating while she's walking across the city panorama at the Queens Museum of Art, and there's just a moment where I think she says, to people who are irritated by me, I just say, so what? Just
Yeah.
Fran Lebowitz in a nutshell.
Yeah. And I think like their friendship is part of what makes this such a compelling watch.
Mm-hmm.
And I imagine that they've been friends for decades. That's the impression that I get from watching this.
Wow.
Yeah.
Well, I've got something to check out later, I guess.
But continuing with the conversation about Scorsese and TV and, contemporary with Shutter Island around that time, he was also directing the pilot of and executive producing Boardwalk Empire.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
I think almost, if not completely simultaneously with Shutter Island, maybe like Shutter Island, the production of that happened a little earlier, but in terms of release, they're pretty close together. And so, yeah, Shutter Island is more of just this kind of straight thriller that maybe doesn't reach quite the epic heights of some of the things that Scorsese is a little better known for, like Goodfellas, Casino, or things of that nature. But it's still, in my opinion, I think it's a solid movie by a director completely in command of his craft.
Yeah. One thing I'd say too is we mentioned earlier about how this falls into the category of sort of a suggestion film.
Yeah.
Mhm.
And I kind of feel like the market forces in the world, in the film world, were the big suggesters, I think, in this moment.
Mhm.
We had other films, right, that we were thinking about
Yeah.
for this time, but I think the timing of the fact that this is being released, or that we are recording this right around the time of the release of The Killers of the Flower Moon,
Yeah.
Yes.
was, I think, the thing that really pushed this over the edge. I don't know
Yeah.
if any
Yeah.
of us were particularly drawn and excited. I think in the future, when we do more suggestion box entries, we'll probably find that one of us is maybe a little bit more passionate to
Yeah.
speak about this than
Yeah.
than the film we talk about than maybe we will be right now.
Yeah, like this is a movie that certainly fit into this category. And it was
Absolutely.
a film that neither Julian or I had seen, and I think had both intended to see for a long time. So
Yeah,
it was
that's
like,
right.
oh, this is the motivation.
Absolutely.
But as
Yeah.
you said, Killers of the Flower Moon came out last weekend at the point we're recording this.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and I've seen this movie before, but I saw it, I think, probably within a year or two of its initial release.
Mm-hmm.
So it's been a long time. And honestly, there were a lot of aspects of this movie that I totally forgot.
Mm-hmm.
So I can't say I'm coming into it totally cold. I definitely knew the twist of the film, but it's not like I was dying to talk about this movie. That being said, I think we're going to have a lot of fun talking about this movie.
Absolutely.
And I guess we should maybe start with like, if you have not seen this movie, let's start with heavy spoiler warning. This is a very twisty movie. It's the twistiest movie we've covered so far. If you
Definitely.
somehow have avoided the twist up until this time, then be forewarned, it will be revealed.
Yes.
Yeah.
And I think pretty soon. I think
Yeah.
it's really hard to talk about what makes this movie interesting or special without revealing it pretty much right away. So
This is a movie that's on the twist level of a lot of 90s classics, a la
Usual
The Sixth
Suspects.
Sense, Usual Suspects, Fight Club. You can go on and on.
yeah, the Crying Game or something like that.
Seven.
Yeah, Seven. I think
Yeah.
that it was one of the things that actually was the most. Upon finishing the movie, I kind of felt like this was one of those movies that felt a lot like a mix of other movies. You
Yeah.
mentioned Usual Suspects. I also thought of The Game, David Fincher's
Haven't
The Game.
seen it.
Haven't gotten to that yet.
Yeah, this movie very much feels like a version of The Game, but just one that takes place in the 1950s, just outside of Boston.
Yeah.
Yeah, in some ways, you mentioned Fincher. I feel like it, and we talked about Fight Club. I think it also is kind of, you said Sixth Sense. It's kind of Shyamalan-y.
There is a
yeah.
little bit of that. I didn't think about
I mean,
that.
he's
but
the king
very
of the
much so.
twist. So
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. But when we think about great film twists, though, I think probably the most easily correlatable to Shutter Island is a movie that is not by any means recent. It's actually quite old as films go. It would be The Cabinet of Dr. Caligari,
Okay.
which is over 100 years old now.
Yeah.
And I assume that I'm not the only one here who's seen that.
I have
Yes.
not seen it.
I saw that movie many moons ago.
Yeah.
And
Same,
it's
honestly.
cool. It's got a really interesting visual style. I think it's one of the reasons why it has persisted.
Yeah.
And why it gets talked about in film school. But yeah, it kind of has. I never really thought about that. But yeah.
Honestly, going into this movie, even without knowing anything really substantive about it, I was kind of suspecting there were, like, if there's a twist, it's going to be something of kind of that nature.
Yeah, I mean, I think that I didn't know the twist going into this, but I still feel like there were, and we'll get into this, there were lines that were like hitting my ear kind of funny
Yeah.
that I was like, that means something. Like that has a deeper meaning.
I also think this movie, oddly enough, and I don't quite know why, but it sort of gave me at times Clockwork Orange vibes.
Yeah, my partner said the same thing.
Yeah, that there is sort of this there is this sort of like one guy who is kind of stuck in and the system's forces are all conspiring, to kind of either hold him down or try to prop him up, or that whatever kind of happens because of whatever they're trying to do for him or to him, has some sort of outsized importance for that system. And so
And
I couldn't help but think of, Alex DeLarge and,
Yeah.
all the sort of Ludovico technique treatment and all that stuff.
Yeah, they're gonna poke you in the eye. In
Exactly.
both movies.
Yeah.
What does he say? Sort of like poke around, I
Yeah.
guess. Yeah.
Only
Poke around in
A Clockwork Orange is a movie that it seems to be a little more geared towards provocation than Shutter Island.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
guess so. Although I would argue that there are some very provocative and emotionally disturbing things that happen in this film.
Totally.
That is true. Yeah.
I think the big sort of flashback realization.
Yeah.
In fact, it was funny. I told my wife about that. I said, "You're probably not going to want to see this movie because this will make you deeply, deeply upset."
Yeah.
And sure enough, she walked in on me right as he's walking through the door, coming back into his home, talking about, and I was like, honey, remember that moment I said that you would not like? You happen to have come in at just that moment.
Yeah. Yeah. It's actually just kind of in a coincidence of timing. Earlier this week, I saw a movie that's new to me that is actually a rather good companion to Shutter Island, and that is William Friedkin's movie Bug. I mean, the setting of it is different, but there are some remarkably similar themes between this and Shutter Island, whether it has to do with the sort of institutional authority and abuses of it, but also like the way that one individual is portrayed, who has questionable morals to begin with, but is just as much a victim as a perpetrator.
Yeah, I think that's one of the notes that the movie kind of plays with a little bit is how much we are supposed to sympathize with the Teddy Daniels /
Andrew Latis.
Thank you, Andrew Latis.
Yeah.
Character played by Leonardo DiCaprio. And yeah, I mean, when you first meet him, there is a little bit of a sort of cocksure attitude and energy about him being a U.S. Marshal. And then as the movie progresses and he sort of opens up a little bit to his
Chuck.
Chuck.
Yeah,
Thank you.
I mean, I was rewatching part of this, and I swear it takes them 20 minutes to say
Yeah.
Mark Ruffalo's character's name. And in all
Yeah.
my notes, I just wrote Ruffalo.
Yeah, that's right. Thank you, Chuck. I also love how, one of the tells, I think, when I'm coming back to this movie, one of the things that I was immediately trying to look for. I mean, this movie kind of falls in one of those kind of puzzle film.
Totally.
It's kind of like a puzzle film in that if you know the twist and you know the ending, when you come back and see it a second time, you're immediately cued in on certain things.
They're
Like you're-
breadcrumbing.
Yeah, they're absolutely. And so some of the ways that the Chuck character speaks to Daniels, he's always calling him
Totally.
boss. That
Yeah.
there's this like pre-scripted kind of vocabulary or lingo that he's using to
Totally.
immediately try to make him feel comfortable, give him the kind of power that he needs in order for whatever might be happening to maybe happen smoother.
Yeah, and I think that not just calling him boss, but he repeatedly says, like, you okay, boss? You all right, boss? What's the matter, boss? I counted, and it's 6 times between sort of, and I could have missed some, but between those 3 phrases, they're said like 6 times.
Totally. Yeah. He's always checking in, and yes, he's almost never not by his side.
Yeah,
throughout
which
the film.
which a later character points out to Teddy. He's
Yeah.
like, "You've not been alone here," and Teddy's like, "Hey, he's my partner. I'm with my partner." And that's when this other guy's kind of planting the seed in Teddy's mind of like, well, something's off.
Totally. I also felt like I couldn't tell if this is what made the movie feel a lot like The Game for me, which is, and again, not to overly spoil that movie or try to not spoil it, but that movie is about, Michael Douglas character sort of plays like a business magnate tycoon, who is a very rich but very lonely guy, and his younger brother gives him this sort of experience gift. There's this corporation that orchestrates a kind of world experience for him that, as he's living it sort of turns into a nightmare. And so a lot of what ends up happening in Shutter Island is that there is this institution there that is also doing a lot of orchestrating. And what kind of, I guess, drives a lot of it for me is that in The Game, there are all these like subtle things that characters are supposed to do in order to push things along. And so when you see this movie, I felt like I was trying to look for certain moments where people were trying to push things along. And I also felt like there were certain things where he was supposed to be U.S. Marshal and that there should be holes in the story. Like whatever was constructed, like when you look back, there's a nurse who immediately takes back something that she says and she feels really shifty about being like, well, maybe I should have been there. And then there's an orderly who's like, well, I went to the bathroom. And so immediately it's supposed
he's
to
like
sort of...
too good at his job.
Exactly.
Like,
but they're supposed to make him feel like he's good at his job.
yeah, but I
and
think
keep
he
him
actually
around.
is, genuinely. I mean,
Yeah.
they tell him, and maybe they're just blowing smoke up his ass, but I feel at one point they are like, you are very intelligent. And something that I picked up on my partial rewatch was whenever they're talking about Rachel Solando, because she's not real, they're talking about him, like whenever they're talking to Teddy about Rachel, and they're saying like, she's concocted this story so she doesn't have to face what she's done. She's living in this fictionalized universe that she's created for herself. Like they are explaining his own condition to him.
Yeah. Yeah.
And one thing that they say about her is like, no, she's incredibly intelligent. And I think they believe that about him as well.
Well, and later in the film, it's sort of revealed that he is sort of an exceptional patient there.
Yeah.
They've obviously done a lot.
They've gone to great lengths to try to heal him
in order to make it happen. So there must be something about him or his situation that is exceptional one way or the other.
What I was thinking about in hindsight too is that there are a lot of moments that narratively, the first time you watch it and you don't know the twist yet, there are a few moments where initially you think they're kind of jumping the shark.
Yeah.
That you later realize could just completely be a figment of Andrew Latis's imagination. But like one such moment was maybe like around, when first act leads to second, when then that scene in the mausoleum when Andrew Latis, when he's still in this Teddy Edwards
Teddy Daniels
persona, where he's starting to believe that there's a conspiracy on this island. That moment when he believes he's starting to crack it, and then the doors of the mausoleum just swing open, and then there's the warden and his crew are there to collect them. That moment, it just feels a little too Hollywood, almost even for a Scorsese movie at first viewing.
Yeah, and then on rewatch, you're like, they've been waiting for him because their entire job this weekend is to follow him around and like make sure they're keeping a close eye on him.
Yeah, they even say at the beginning when they get off the boat, they're like, everyone's on edge.
Oh, totally.
And it's like they're on edge because they're setting up this whole scenario, and they don't know how it's going to go.
And
they don't know if things are going to turn violent.
They also
or not.
know that he's incredibly violent when occasionally. So they're all armed.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and I don't know. He presents some sort of a thing saying, because of this law and this bylaw or this sub law, I'm supposed to. Yes, we have jurisdiction over this, and you have to turn over your firearms. And all that stuff.
Which at this moment, as Chuck, Mark Ruffalo, he also has to turn over his firearm.
Right.
And he really fumbles.
Yes, he does. Yeah.
With taking it off. And I think that's
another giveaway.
A clue that he's not actually a marshal, that, he can't even take off his firearm.
Totally.
Yeah. And then I think in the same scene, the John Carroll Lynch warden character, Warden McPherson, says something to the both of them about being men of violence.
Yeah.
In reference to the fact that they are war veterans. Apart from their status as veterans, like I kind of thought that reference to them being men of violence, that struck me in hindsight as a possible hint of the unreliable narrator aspect of this, because I think that at first, like, Teddy is disconcerted by that assertion.
Yeah.
He really seems to. He can't deny it, but he is disturbed by that notion. And then you really start to think initially that Teddy Daniels is this war veteran who is aware of his past, but he's really trying to put it behind him.
Sure.
Mm-hmm.
But then you find out as you see him go through other further narrative steps. Before he realizes what's happening to him, you do see a lot of proof to the contrary, that he is, in fact, a man of violence.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
He has a very short fuse.
Yeah.
I was going to ask you guys really quick, and I don't know if I'm jumping the gun here. Do we really know that he was a war veteran?
I don't think we know that for sure. I feel like they make some sort of comment later about like, we think that you were at Dachau.
Yeah. They said something to that effect as well. But I felt like the presence of the Max von Sydow character, it could have very well been a projection of his unease or dislike of the institution and the authority figures there, that he could have maybe created a situation for himself where he's like a past memory where he developed a deep hatred for Germans or Nazis.
Yeah, and he's like the good guy here, like opposed to the evil German doctor experimenting on people.
This second time seeing it, that was something that I couldn't help but I couldn't shake thinking. I was like, maybe that whole thing is just another extrapolation of his own, very, very shaky handle on reality and his own sanity.
I mean, which is maybe a good segue into the question of like, how much of what we see do we think is actually happening versus how much do we think is hallucination?
There are some scenes that are pretty clearly posited as dreams or hallucinations.
Yeah.
Like anything with
his
wife.
Dolores.
Yes, played by Michelle Williams. Like that from the get-go it's made very clear that those are either memories
Or
dreams.
I think
hallucinations.
they're always dreams,
Yeah.
very intentionally so. Because,
Although
Yeah.
he is talking to the guy he beat up, and
George.
yeah.
Noyce, yeah.
And she appears in
That's
that
true.
scene too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes.
So it's dreams, or I think sometimes hallucinations as well.
Yeah. Probably a little bit of the Tyler Durden effect there.
Mhm.
Sure.
But then, like, I get a little bit more uncertain when I think about a lot of the scenes that are like kind of presented as the reality from
Yeah.
the beginning of the movie onward. Like, even a little bit about that arrival on the boat, there's part of me that wonders if that's even real.
Yeah, because I'm like, well, if assuming that they're setting this all up for this elaborate role play to try to cure him, which is, for those who haven't seen what is happening, we first see Teddy like retching on a boat. He doesn't like water for a reason we'll get to later.
For sure.
And my assuming that they have concocted this elaborate role play, how far out did they send him? And like, when does he kind of snap to the point of when we meet him?
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it's very possible that they put him or that they sedated him heavily and then put him on the boat and then woke him up.
You see some like handcuffs.
Sure.
So maybe they did. That's a good point. That maybe they sedated him and like locked him up and drove around in circles in the ocean.
And then, like, I remember one point pretty early on in the movie where I was just kind of like, wait, what's happening here? I'm still a little unsure whether we would consider this a real scene or not. But at the point when Teddy is beginning to interrogate patients at the institution on the island,
Mm-hmm.
Right.
and there's two people you really see him speak to, and he asks them about this, at this point, we don't know the significance of the name Andrew Latis, who, and at that point, I was just kind of like, wait, where did this come from?
Sure.
Because, like, as we are told previously, that, Teddy Daniels, this U.S. Marshal, is on this island to investigate the disappearance of Rachel Solando. And then I'm just kind of thinking, like, wait, when did it become about this guy? We haven't heard his name so far.
Well, at this point, though, on rewatch, we have heard the name at this point, and
really?
I wouldn't have picked it up first time,
Mm-hmm.
but in his first kind of dream of him and his wife Dolores, she says to him like,
Latest.
he's still here,
He's
and
still
he's like,
here.
who? And
Yeah.
she's like, Latest.
That's
And
right.
That's right.
It's,
Yeah.
yeah.
She,
it's
like,
easy to
whispers it.
miss if you don't know who that is yet, because you're like, wait, what did she say?
Also
Yeah.
really helpful if you watch with subtitles,
Absolutely, yeah.
which
Yeah.
I've done and I can't go back.
Yeah.
Mhm.
That's just how I see things now.
Yeah, like, honestly, I did notice that name the first time, but it's like it's not given to you in a really crystal clear fashion.
Yeah, totally. They're
Until
just trying to
that-
sneak it in so they can bring it up in this scene you're referring to now.
Yeah, those interview scenes. And it's worth noting, too, on the casting front that the two patients who he speaks to there are played by some character actors with interesting credits.
Mhm.
The first one is played by a guy named Christopher Denham, who, the really notable credit at this point in time is that he was in Oppenheimer, playing the scientist Klaus Fuchs. But then the other one is Robin Bartlett. That's the actress who plays the patient Bridget,
Mrs. Kearns.
Mrs. Kearns, who, at least I know from Inside Llewyn Davis, she
Yeah.
plays Lillian Gorfine in that movie.
And she's also in The Fabelmans.
Yes, and I wouldn't remember off the top of my head her character in that.
I think she's a member of the family.
Her name, according to Wikipedia, is Tina Schildkraut.
That means nothing to me.
Yeah.
Is that her actress? No, that's the name
the
of
character
the
in the
character in the
Fabelmans.
Fablemans.
That's right.
Pardon me. I got a little lost there for a second.
But yeah, my question in relation to Peter and Mrs. Kearns here is, are these actual patients? Or like, because why
Yeah.
are they trusting these two people with this task of meeting with Teddy? Like,
Yeah.
when they could and do like kind of
blow it for
blow
him.
it.
Yeah. I mean, they have the other patients on that he sees on the walk.
Mhm.
One of them kind of waves and smiles in
Yeah.
a knowing manner. The other one who looks incredibly ghoulish.
Very
Yeah.
scary.
Yeah, pretty freaky. Just kind of puts her finger up to her lips to say shh, or to do that, which maybe in retrospect was her relaying instructions she was given, right? To maybe be quiet or whatnot. But the other thing that I was wondering is, do you remember how he tries to agitate him by rubbing the pencil lead against the paper?
Which I skipped over a second time because I was like, this agitates me. Success.
But that felt like a very knowing moment between the two of them.
That's a good
point.
point.
It was one of those weird things where it was like he knew that a way to get under his skin was to make that sound.
That's a good point, because you are kind of like, why? First time you're like, why does he know that this is going to irritate the guy so much? And my assumption was like, well, I find that noise very irritating. So
Yeah, I was just wondering, is this like a very typical tactic of interrogation in the 1950s?
Yeah.
Maybe. But
who knows? Very,
and
very
Mrs.
possible.
Kearns is not a particularly good liar. Like, she's very composed in the first half, but as soon as he starts asking questions, she like is very shifty and like looking back and forth at Ruffalo, who's later revealed to be their doctor.
Exactly. And she even mentioned something to the effect of, right, he's a really good looking guy.
Oh yeah, he's not hard in the eyes, as my mother would say. And it shoots to Chuck at this point, like kind of trying to subdue a grin.
Exactly.
Although crucially, Mrs. Kearns, she at the moment when she sends Chuck up to get that glass of water, she quickly steals Teddy's notebook and writes "run."
Yeah, and I would say that maybe she's like flattering Chuck before that, so that he's comfortable enough to leave her there.
Yeah, and then
very possible.
Yeah, and she's sympathetic to Teddy, or as we later find out, Andrew Lettuce's plight.
Yeah, and this maybe what you were gonna get to is that they end this interview with like, have you ever met a patient or heard of a patient named Andrew Lattice? And she gets very shifty at this point because she's talking to him.
Andrew Lattice. Yeah.
Yeah, it's just like, it's there are other movies where you just find out some name that initially is faceless that just becomes like this object of terror. Maybe it's like
it's a boogeyman.
A Kaiser Soze.
Sure.
It's that kind of name, or like I feel like there's a character in Memento like that too.
I was just gonna say that was the movie that I also thought a lot about when I was watching this. Is that the Teddy Gamble character very much feels a lot like the institution.
Yeah, don't believe his lies.
He sees but he sees somebody who he feels like he can profit from, or he can like manipulate essentially.
Yeah.
In some ways, maybe altruistically to kind of help this guy along, but then realizes that he's so far gone that he has to go to more drastic measures.
Yeah.
And that's kind of what happens in this movie. It's like,
it's true.
These, there are some very drastic measures taken.
Yeah. And there's a moment, I forget exactly when in the movie it falls, but like I think at a moment when Teddy is starting to put things together and you start to see some things play in reverse. See, like the burning of his cigarette happens in reverse.
Yeah.
And I mean,
very Memento-like.
Exactly. Very much like that first scene of Memento.
I felt like in that scene, it was designed to be your moment as the viewer and for him to almost remember again. It's like he walks right to the edge of the truth. And then backs away.
And we later find out that they've had this breakthrough with him before, and he's regressed, which is ultimately what we see yet again.
I think that scene, like the reverse, the scene that's played in reverse happens like around like that portion, maybe like 2/3 of the way through the movie when Teddy is walking through the abandoned Ward C. He's going through there looking for Andrew Lattice, thinking he's a different person. Yeah, it's like that's the moment when he kind of almost puts it together after I believe it's after he's spoken with George Noyce.
Right.
Great one-scene character played by Jackie Earle Haley.
Yes, whose face is totally burned in my brain from the movie Little Children.
Have you guys
seen that movie?
Yeah,
that was kind of
Todd Field.
his big coming back out party as an actor, and plays a very difficult character in that film. But if you've ever seen that movie, you never forget him.
Yeah, and I like when I was watching it, I was thinking at first it was Pete Postlethwaite playing that character.
It looks a little bit like Pete Postlethwaite. Yes.
Yeah, so those very pronounced cheekbones.
Right. Right.
Yeah, and this like it would have been
just a little too far in the Kaiser Soze direction. Pete Postlethwaite, I think, right around this time was also in The Town.
That's right.
Right. He has a very memorable. He's the florist, I guess.
Yeah.
I don't actually mean that's his main profession, but that's his cover.
Yeah, and
he's a bad man.
Waste management. Yeah, that's his waste management.
Right.
But yeah, but that's also a Boston movie, The Town.
Yeah, there you go.
And well, Shutter Island, it's not set in Boston proper, but it's
set in Boston Harbor.
Yeah,
there you go.
The what do they call it?
Leonardo DiCaprio definitely is putting on a little bit of a
this
Boston accent.
I gotta say, I like Leo in this movie, but sometimes he hits the accent so strong.
Yeah,
he definitely does. I mean. The Departed, another Scorsese film.
Yeah.
Probably, filmed, 2-3 years apart or so?
Mm-hmm.
Something like that.
Maybe 4 years, I guess. But yeah. Both set in Boston with those Boston accents. I couldn't help but think of his character in The Departed, too.
Though I don't remember having any moments like that in The Departed where I wasn't buying the accent.
Yeah.
That I was pretty sold throughout that movie, on not just on his, but on all the characters' accents.
Well, I think his character also, they make jokes about his accent, or they reference his accent about how he changes his accent in order to sound like he comes from a different part of Boston, a more affluent part of Boston.
Yeah.
So right away, you already get a little bit of a pass at the beginning of that movie that he might sound, it might be a little thicker one way or the other.
Yeah.
And it's just part of his character and how he grew up and how he tried to code switch, essentially.
Yeah.
But yeah.
Whereas in Shutter Island, I do agree with you, Madeline, that there are a couple moments where the Boston accent just felt a little too put on.
Yeah, and there's also Ruffalo kind of has a Boston accent in this, even though Chuck is meant to be from Seattle.
Right. Or Portland, or
They keep going back and forth.
Yeah. Oh, that's, I guess, from Seattle or
somewhere in the
There's
Northwest.
a real moment where it seems like Andrew Daniels is trying to catch him in the act.
Yeah, it's
he says something about that.
Yeah, I think that maybe Teddy in his mind is familiar with an office in Portland and not so much in Seattle. So he's like, "You're from Portland, right?" And Chuck is always like, "No, I'm from Seattle." Both of these are ridiculous. You do not sound like you're from either of these places.
Yeah.
You know who also is not from the place that I think she originally is from is Emily Mortimer. I've seen Emily Mortimer in many, many things over the years, and was pretty convinced watching her.
Yep.
Good on you.
Same, yeah. It's I think most of the time when you see her in things, she is using her
British accent.
Her British accent.
Yeah, so this is a little bit unusual.
Yeah, and this is another this movie has a couple of great one scene roles. And if you look in a technical way at the script, Emily Mortimer does appear in, I think, more than one scene on paper, but it's really just one scene where she gets to shine.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
The very, very end, you get to see her one more time.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it's sort of revealed that she is a nurse, kind of playing a role.
That's right. Yeah.
Which is to say that part of what makes her performance, and a lot of the performances in this film so compelling, is that they have to work in different ways. They have to make you buy into the universe in your first watch, but once it's revealed what happens, you have to be able to say, oh, well, this was a nurse playing the part to try to cure him and help him move through this delusion.
Right.
But the nurse in universe is a great actress.
Yeah. She's wonderful. Yeah. Totally Academy Award winning, actually, I think. You were talking about other kind of one scene standout performances. Patricia Clarkson,
of course.
The other
Rachel was also fantastic. A great exposition deliverer, and has that wonderful nervous energy that completely plays fantastically to his own I guess paranoia, right? She's supposed to be a manifestation of all of the conspiratorial thoughts that he is having, and she totally helps keep, I think, the viewer and him in that state a little further.
She plays it so convincingly that up until this point, I'm still totally bought in. I'm yes, these people are all Nazis and they're experimenting on people and they're violating human rights laws, and really I was bought into this for a really long time. Even after they sort of reveal the twist that he is a patient at this facility, I'm still no, because Patricia Patricia Clarkson told me
Yeah.
that I can't trust you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And, they say that she's not real, but I don't know, man. She felt so real to me. I didn't want her to not be real.
Well, yeah.
I was like, whatever, Andrew Latis, like if he is concocting characters with that level of like emotional core,
just
that
let
he's
him
got
be.
something special going
Yeah.
on. in
Totally.
that
And
brain.
I love the moment where she says that she used to work here and he's like, oh, you were a nurse? And she was like, I'm a doctor.
Yeah. Get it straight, dude.
Yeah. But then
And came from a well-respected family
Yeah, but
too.
what does that mean?
Yeah,
yeah,
I know.
And, like I feel like Patricia Clarkson's a particularly good person to cast for delivering lines like that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like one of my main associations with her, and I'll preface by saying I have not watched this show start to finish, but the one time I decided to flip onto Broad City just while channel surfing, there is a very memorable episode where she plays a drunken party hostess.
I think for me, oddly enough, it was that movie, The Station Agent.
Haven't seen it.
Yeah, I remember that movie came out right in that sweet spot when I was working at the video store a lot. And that was one of those hot little indie movies that came out. And I remember taking it home. And I think that's the first connection that I have with her in there.
For
She's
me,
in that.
I think of her as, I hate this, but I think of her as like, she's Emma Stone's mom in Easy A.
Oh, I love Easy A.
And that's like
Never
a
seen
movie
it.
that came
It's really
out-
good.
That came out like right as I was graduating high school, and so I think I was absolutely the target demographic for
Yeah.
this movie.
Yeah,
and
it's
she is
quite good.
so good as the mom in that.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
Stanley Tucci's the dad.
Yeah, Stanley Tucci's the dad.
That's a very satisfying sort of like teen comedy.
Parental
I think
unit.
that was the one. Yeah, 100%. Yeah, good stuff. I mean, there are a lot of great one scene performances.
Yeah.
I think you mentioned John Carroll Lynch
Yeah.
earlier.
Yeah.
Norm
He's-
Gunderson.
I can't help, or to me
Our
also, I know
buddy.
we've mentioned it before, but in Zodiac,
Arthur Lee Allen.
Lee
Yeah.
Allen, yeah. I can never shake his performance from that movie from my mind. He is always that guy, even if he sometimes is Norm Gunderson too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's and then one other actor who has more than one scene but really just has kind of one defining scene to shine is the Ted Levine Warden character.
Yeah.
Yeah, whose voice tipped me off
Yeah.
first that it
Yeah.
was Ted Levine.
Yeah.
Because I just immediately heard the Buffalo Bill.
It
"Ooh,
rubs
she
the
runs
lotion
like
on its
fat
skin."
Yeah, it's that weird sort of like his words sit in the back of his throat.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know, man. He's got a interesting vocal delivery, but it's like
Yeah.
an
For
instant tell. Before I saw his face, I was like, "What's Buffalo Bill doing on this island right
Yeah.
now?"
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it seems like that character finds this whole experiment to be just hilarious. Like
Yes.
he's grinning in every scene.
That's right.
And then that's kind of making me think, I think the first time you see that character's face is in this moment right as Teddy Daniels is about to drift off into dream. Like I think he's in the midst of a migraine.
Oh yeah, yeah,
And there's he's overwhelmed by bright lights.
right.
And I think it's right before he drifts off to sleep. And this is the sequence where I think at first we put what we think is a face to Andrew Latis, who he sees in the same chair that he had seen Dr. Naring.
The one with the giant scar across his
Yeah.
face. Yep.
Played another great one scene role played by Elias Codius.
Oh yeah, that guy, man.
Yeah, another great character actor.
Yeah, he's that guy. I feel like is always in movies, and just in the most random scenes.
Yeah.
I know he's also in Zodiac.
Right.
Yeah,
right,
he's in
right.
Zodiac. And I remember him from the Thin Red Line too.
Never seen that.
Yeah, that's he's in that one as well.
And
But-
I remember him from his sole appearance on The Sopranos as the intervention leader.
oh my God,
Yeah.
that's one of my favorite episodes.
Yeah, it's one of the
Please, no judgments.
Yeah.
He's like, I don't write nothing down. I'm sorry. That's a whole.
Yeah.
I love that episode
that's
so much.
that one scene. If you don't nip it in the bud, you're just gonna quote it relentlessly.
I know, it's so
not
great.
you specifically.
Yeah.
One would do.
No,
that.
no.
Yeah.
No, me specifically, and possibly others.
Yeah.
I love that scene. You're absolutely right. Oh
Yeah.
my God. All right, great, wonderful.
But yeah, then this dream sequence, we put what we think is a true face to Andrew Latis lettuce.
Ooh, I like lettuce.
Yeah, leafy greens.
Yeah, leafy greens. I like that. Andrew
Yeah,
lettuce.
I can't decide in my head whether to pronounce it one way or the other, but
I'm kind of cool with lettuce.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's just like, the produce.
makes it seem like something a little healthier.
Maybe. Yep.
But yeah, we see what we think is a face that we can put to him, and I think that this is worth noting. Shutter Island was released in the same year as Inception, and the DiCaprio character experiences a dream within a dream.
Oh my
Yeah.
gosh, guys.
Totally.
Though
This is getting way too meta. No, in a wonderful way. So
Yeah, though this did come before Inception in release.
right.
And I find his concoction of lettuce really interesting because he's like created this guy to be as scary looking as possible.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's like he has this, understandable, intense guilt of what he's done, that he's like, only a monster could do this.
Yeah. I also
Yeah.
thought it was really telling that he's sitting in the Max von Sydow's chair, his character's chair.
Yeah, because Dr. Naring, the Max von Sydow character, is strongly suggested to be a Nazi who has fled Germany.
Yeah.
And then that actually is a pretty good segue into an aspect of this movie that I think this is one of the things that really kind of keeps you on Teddy's side before you realize the twist, which is its portrayal of institutional abuse.
Mm-hmm.
And when you consider the time that this is set in 1954, I mean, this is contemporary with MK Ultra. And this, what we now know were like a series of CIA sanctioned institutional medical abuses.
Yeah.
If not just complete, torture and sometimes murder that occurred completely legally. When you see this Dr. Naring character, who we are led to believe is a Nazi, you sort of feel like that could be true.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Just in general, there is a deep undercurrent or overcurrent of distrust
Yeah.
Mhm.
that is sewn right into this movie right away. We haven't even talked about Ben Kingsley's character,
Yeah.
Dr.
Exactly.
Cawley, but that he plays this sort of, well, the two of them, I guess, play like kind of ultra slick.
Yeah.
Sort of doctors and kind of heads of their institution, and they always seem to have an answer for everything, and they always seem to also be able to kind of use their intelligence and their wit to kind of turn things around.
Mhm.
Anytime they feel like maybe Andrew Latis, or the U.S. Marshal version of Andrew Latis, sort of tries to get a one-up on them, they seem to always kind of tamper him down, whether
Yeah.
it's with their words or whether it's some sort of
like bureaucratic like-
thing, or when they actually starts giving him medication,
Yeah.
which happens, I think, a couple times.
Yeah, it
And it's
happens
just like,
pretty
"Here, take
early
this
on.
aspirin."
Pretty much as soon as he gets there,
Yeah.
he's
Yeah.
like, "I'm having a migraine," and they're like, "Cool, take this." And I was like, they gave it to him in one of those little tiny white cups that you see people take medication out of in films like this. And I remember from One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest, and that was another moment for me early on where I was like, he is not mentally well because they gave him a little cup to take his medicine out
Yep.
of.
Yeah.
Yeah, they didn't even show him the bottle. They didn't open it, themselves. No safety locks, no nothing like that. So
Yeah.
I mean, on the subject of One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest, I mean, that having been a movie that we also recently saw and discussed, I was wondering if there was any sort of, if this movie was trying to create sort of an exceptionalism kind of feeling around the Andrew Latis character, the way that the Milos Forman, I guess, kind of tries to portray it for Mick Murphy. If there was something also about him, before we kind of see him, if there was some sort of like a presence that he has there amongst other people or other patients that is kind of outsized, or maybe that he's a little bit of a potential agitator outside of the violence that he apparently caused.
Yeah.
Yeah. Or maybe this is just a sort of exceptionalism that he is seeing for himself to make him feel like his plight is something greater than it really is.
But with the lengths that they've gone to, like you have to assume that they have some sort of special interest in healing him.
On connections to One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest, though, I mean, like one thing that stood out to me that was a little more kind of in the setting of the milieu for the movie was in the racial coding of the characters. Where it's like all like I think in Shutter Island, the only black characters you see are all orderlies at the institution.
They talk about how this is the only institution of its kind in the U.S. So, I mean, when we talked about Cuckoo's Nest, we were like, well, I mean, it's sort of assumed that there are different institutions at this point. The institutions are segregated, but in Shutter Island, this is the only institution of its kind. So it's like in some ways you kind of look at it as like, Black people in this point of time are not given the opportunity to access rehabilitation in this way. Criminally insane, quote unquote, Black people, like they don't have a Shutter Island.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
I think that's a very good point.
Interesting to note that the facility in One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest is set like
in Portland.
In Portland, yeah.
In Salem, I guess.
Yeah.
Salem, Oregon.
Kind of like ambiguously Portland.
Yeah, it's very possible that maybe the Chuck character, Dr. Nehan, maybe was there in Salem.
I don't know if you've heard he's from Seattle.
Oh, sorry. Yeah, that's true.
Yeah, but then maybe
I don't know. Maybe he was working in Portland, in the area, in the Oregon area at some point.
But yeah, in thinking about the inherently subjective aspects of this movie, I mean, like when you think about the kind of central impulse of Teddy Daniels at first, there's this strong revenge impulse, and that this is where
Memento.
I think we can. Well, Memento.
I felt Memento in a big way there too.
That's a good connection to make.
So I'm sorry to cut you off.
No, thank you for mentioning that. But the connection that really stood out to me there was actually to other Scorsese movies. The movie I thought about the most was actually The Departed, not because of the Boston connection, but kind of the pace of the movie. Much of Shutter Island has this kind of brisk pace that reminded me a lot of The Departed.
Yeah, you know, you were mentioning about how other films that he was going to release later in the decade have a little bit more of this epic scope, 3+ hour films. You know, this movie is about 2 hours and 10-ish minutes or so, but it certainly feels and moves with a lot of like propulsive energy.
Yeah.
You know, and you're not in any scenes really that are not designed to ramp up the suspense.
Yeah.
And ramp up your own feelings of you know, what can I trust, what's really happening, and so you're constantly sort of engaged with this movie in a way where you're trying to figure it out as you go. And so I think you mentioned the Shyamalan comparison, and it oddly enough feels I think that's pretty appropriate, but you know, it's a lot more of a kind of an easier pop culture, you know, pill to swallow.
Yeah, I mean, I watched this movie in 2 parts just for time this week, and because of that, my viewing of the second half, by the end of it, I was like, wait, it's over. The second half for me flew by.
Yeah.
And to the point that I'm like, oh, I really should have watched this straight through. And if I had had time, I absolutely would have, because I by the end of the second half, I was like, I still want another hour of this movie.
Sure. Yeah. No. I will say, you know, the very end of the film, when he gets to the lighthouse and Dr. Colley's characters up there waiting for him.
Why are you all wet, baby?
Yeah.
Oh, that's right.
That maybe was the only laugh out loud moment I had within the movie.
It's so funny.
Yeah. It's
why are you all wet,
little
baby?
Strange. You're right.
Alarming.
Yeah, it is a little alarming.
Yeah, and coming from this, you know, very proper English accented voice that Ben Kingsley has, it's just like, it's so surprising.
I will say there was one detail in that scene that felt a little overkill to me.
In the lighthouse scene?
In the lighthouse scene. And I'm a sucker for wordplay. I love wordplay.
Same.
But when he just pulled the curtain on the whiteboard and revealed the anagram names, I was like, okay. I think that was the one moment that took it over the edge. I'm like, I think you guys are being just like a tiny bit too cute.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's why at this point, they reveal this, and I'm still like, they're messing with him. Like I'm still like this. I don't believe them. Patricia Clarkson is so convincing that I clung to her scene.
Gotcha. And
through
you have
so much of this.
You have great distrust for really anything that would come out of them later.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Right. If they tell you that she's not real, you're like, I call
like,
bullshit on
I
anything
just saw
else.
her.
Yeah.
I think it's really not until Chuck Mark Ruffalo it like comes out that I'm like, okay, now I believe you now.
I think I had the same feeling. It's the moment when he arrives, and I'm like, oh wow, this is a setup.
Yeah.
Yeah, and Mark Ruffalo is revealed to actually be named Dr. Lester Sheehan, who is up until this point a faceless figure.
It's been told to Teddy and Chuck that Sheehan left on vacation.
Yeah.
And they're like, that's really irresponsible of you to like have a missing patient, and then her primary care psychiatrist just like leaves
Also
to go to like
happens to leave.
Bali.
Yeah, I mean, and he answers it so funny. He's like, well, it was already scheduled or something. Yeah, but also one of those details where I was like, they have to create just enough, imply negligence on their part, just enough to keep him there around looking for clues and for him to more fully inhabit his old U.S. Marshal self.
Yeah, because it continues to like build this institution as being very corrupt and build these doctors, these psychiatrists as being these like people like with their clipboards and their stethoscopes and their cushy chairs and their board meetings.
So what do we think about them at the end? This is one of the like lingering questions I had, which is like, I think throughout the film, you are made to deeply, deeply distrust the Dr. Colley character, the Naring character, and pretty much anybody associated with the kind of institutional authority there.
Yeah.
But at the very end of the film, it's almost kind of flipped on its head.
Yeah.
Where you're almost sort of asked to suddenly see them as people who have Andrew Laetis's best interests in mind, and that they're really actually trying to help, and that maybe all the sort of talk of this being a really actually very special place that is meant to look out for people even if they are criminals.
Yeah.
So are we convinced that this place is actually good?
See, at the time I think no, and still no, but on my partial rewatch, I was really struck by Colley, Ben Kingsley's character, Dr. Colley. I think that you do sense some real compassion from him towards Teddy throughout the film, even though the film presents him as distrustful, and I think understandably so. He does put so much emphasis on referring to everyone as patients rather than prisoners.
Right.
And Teddy is like, well, they're violent offenders, like they've murdered people.
I don't have time for them.
Yeah, yeah. I don't care about their comfort. And you know, Colley's like, you know, I'm here to treat, not to judge. Like and he says the greatest obstacle to Rachel's recovery was her refusal to face what she did. And like I think is very gentle with Teddy in a lot of ways. Until he
know what is actually going to happen.
Until you know what's actually going to happen.
Yeah.
And I think that's like one of the real dark parts of this film, of which there are several, is that like at one point he's talking about the like old school of thought versus the new school of thought for like mental health care. And it's like, well, either like surgical procedures like lobotomy or like medication. And like either way, you're just sort of subduing the patient and putting them in a corner and not actually working to treat them or make them better.
Yeah. And I think that's one of the things that I guess happens towards the end, is that it seems like what he was trying to orchestrate was a sort of last ditch effort to get to prevent the old school way of kind of coming in and saying, well, look, he's done X, Y, and Z, and for any number of reasons, we have to take these very extreme measures.
Yeah, and he says in that same scene, like, what should be a last resort is like the first option, or whatever he says. And I think he is at the point with Teddy where he's like, this is the last resort, and we have gotten there. We have tried everything else.
Also, so one of the details that I did not remember when I rewatched this film was the very, very end. And I really liked the very, very end of this movie. I thought it was really beautifully acted and really well written. And it was something that I completely forgot. I think for me, in my memory of this film, it sort of ends, or it had ended up until rewatching it now on kind of the big twist.
Yeah.
Just realizing that, oh, he's actually a patient there. Oh, he actually murdered his wife. And that he's carrying this guilt around, and that's what's getting in the way. But the very end of the movie, presents that scenario. It's like all of this was done in an attempt to keep a lobotomy from happening, or something even worse, something that would, for all intents and purposes, pretty much take away his humanity. So one of the things I loved about it was that he plays it, the Andrew Latis, or I'm going to say Leonardo DiCaprio, the actor,
he is playing
chooses to play this from a perspective of he has to say enough to his doctor, Mark Ruffalo's character, to convince him enough that he is not remembered, or that he cannot live in reality still, or he acknowledges the sort of duality of his situation. And so when he's leaving, it's sort of implied that he actually has accepted reality, but that he doesn't want to live anymore, thinking he's a monster.
I took it as I kind of read this as he has regressed to a point. I don't think that the like progress and acceptance of what he's done has necessarily stuck, but I do think that he ultimately understands what he does kind of agree to and kind of march forward to.
For me, it felt very much like he was submitting. Or that the lobotomy was actually going to sort of almost cure him, but that he needed to say, he's like, I don't know, Chuck, it seems like we gotta, wait around a little longer or something. Like he has to inhabit that guy one more time just for Chuck to be like, oh no, this dude's done.
Yeah.
And then have them greenlight whatever they're gonna do or take him away, just enough that he, can have that ending.
And one question about that final line where DiCaprio's character asks Sheehan if it would be worse to live as a monster or to die as a good man. Do we think he really has, when he says as a good man, do we think that he really has redeemed himself in some way, or that he's just accepting he's going to be, by being lobotomized, he's going to be brought into this illusion?
Well, what's messed up is yes, he murdered his wife. Mm-hmm. She had
set fire to their old apartment, apparently.
Yeah, killed their children and set fire to their home and wanted to die. And so it's like, well, yes, you should not murder your spouse under any circumstances. But I got to say that in the grand scheme of things, I don't think what he did was all that bad.
Yeah. There's an argument to be made for how he is not a monster for having done that.
Yeah, I agree with that.
It's a crime of passion.
It's a crime of passion.
Yeah.
And I think ultimately, he felt as though he was ending her suffering, as someone who he loved deeply, who was deeply unwell, who was deeply unhappy, who had caused harm to other people that he loved. Mm-hmm. I don't know.
His kids.
The people who he loved more than anything. And I think that I understand why you would have this guilt that you could never overcome from doing something like that, but I don't think he's a monster.
Yeah, and I think that central situation, I think, is what also keeps us, the viewer, on his side.
And one thing that I like about Leo is I don't think that Leo is someone that I automatically always side with. I think about Wolf of Wall Street, where I pretty quickly turn on him in that movie, but I still find him very compelling to watch.
Yeah, that's one of the great, I think, characteristics of him as an actor is that he does not have to be likable to be a compelling presence on screen.
But he does have this ability to when you are supposed to side with him, he's got you in the palm of his hand.
Oh yeah. I think this movie has some of the best Leonardo DiCaprio crying.
It's true.
He's
Yeah.
such a good choir.
Yeah.
Like that
Yeah.
first dream sequence, he's just like holding Michelle Williams, and there's like this like raining ash that's like kind of sparkling, and she's
Yeah.
like, "You have to let me go," and he's just sobbing like into the side of her face, and it's just a beautiful scene.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think
and I think that scene too, it's again, like on rewatch, it's sort of designed to show you that he is deep enough in his delusion that he's still thinking about her being a victim of the apartment fire.
Yeah.
And I gotta say, I find her character really, really interesting. Because she is presented as a victim, and she's presented as kind of like a Nolan kind of wife, like dead
Yeah.
wife.
well,
Can you
also-
explain that, by the
It's
way?
another
I think I know what that means, but
It's another connection to Inception.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Like you think about Inception, and you think about Marion Cotillard's character in Inception, and like oftentimes Nolan will bring beautiful, tortured women into his movies that had something tragic happen to them.
that whatever tragic happens to them is what's driving
exactly.
their husbands or their
Exactly. They're used as some sort of tool,
catalyst.
Exactly. To then, make the man like push him along on his journey.
Another Memento.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Exactly.
exactly.
Yeah.
But I think that she's presented at first glance in this way in this movie. And then you
then it
find out
flips.
that she's the villain,
Yeah.
Yeah.
more or
Yeah.
less, as much as there's a villain in this movie.
Sure.
Yeah.
Yeah. I would definitely think so too. I don't know why I remembered the enormously tragic scene in this movie. I remembered it a little differently, I think. I remember her being a little more maniacal.
Yeah.
I remember there being a little bit, at least for me, it was like there was a little bit more of like a real villainous turn. And I think this time watching it, I was struck a lot more with just the real unfortunate and profound sadness of what people can do when they're hurting.
Yeah, she
Yeah.
is delusional. She is not evil.
Yeah.
Like, she's not villainous.
Well, she certainly does evil
she does
things,
evil,
but yes,
villainous
yeah.
things, but it doesn't come from a place of malice, I don't think. It comes from, like, a place of delusion where even after she has, she's implied to have drowned them, she still thinks they're alive. She's
Yeah.
like, they're going to be our dolls, and we're going to take them inside and, like, have dinner.
That's some Jeffrey Dahmer
Ah.
style stuff.
Yeah.
Right there. Oof.
Just thinking about the Michelle
Ugh,
Williams
God.
performance
Yeah.
here, it kind of made me think of some of the more heightened roles that she's been in. Have either of you seen Manchester by the Sea?
Oh my God, yes.
Yeah, there's another rather dark connection to that movie.
Oh, with
in
the
this
yes,
one.
I was
Yeah.
thinking. I thought of it too. Yeah, the kids and the dead kids and her role in that.
Yeah, and it's
yeah.
but the difference in Manchester by the Sea is that it's an accident in that movie,
Right.
Whereas
it is, yes,
it's
and she's actually a victim in there too.
right.
Yeah.
But then in this, it's we've gone into what it is in Shutter Island. But then I feel like Manchester by the Sea is another Michelle Williams role where you really see her just in this very heightened state of emotion.
But yeah, I mean, the kind of reckoning of like a massive family tragedy.
Yeah.
She's at the center of those of
Yeah.
two of them. Yeah.
And then in The Fabelmans, I mean, it's, the plot of that movie is very different, but there's a certain frequency that she's kind of tapped into that's very similar.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. I mean, that's another role where she's playing like a mother who maybe doesn't really want to be a mother.
Yeah.
Yep.
And is dealing with her own mental health struggles on top of having to play mother.
Yeah. But then I was thinking too, I don't know if there's really any connection to draw here other than the proximity in time, but that Shutter Island, it's released 2 years after the death of Heath Ledger. And I mean, it was shot in 2008. probably like
Yeah.
really shortly after he passed away, honestly. So
yeah, when I picked up
Yeah.
on this timing, I was like, I wonder if that's any motivation of her taking this role. Like,
Yeah.
it is like if someone that you have children with, you know, who you very recently were in a relationship with, tragically passes away before their time. Like, I do imagine that there are different ways to kind of go through, like, work through that trauma, and I wonder if a movie like this could play into that.
yeah, it just
Yeah.
seemed
Yeah.
remarkably close to that experience. I thought it must have. I mean, I can imagine it having been painful for
Very,
her
very
too.
painful. Yeah.
For sure.
Yeah.
One big thing we have not talked about yet, though, the use of music in it.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Kind of sparse, if I'm not mistaken, but
Yeah.
very
Powerful.
Inception like. I
Yeah.
felt like very like it
Mhm.
comes in with these stabs.
Mhm.
Totally. Like
yeah.
when they're first pulling up to the hospital. I don't know. I mean, famously, like, this movie doesn't have a score. Like, this movie is entirely like already composed classical pieces.
Yeah.
The Mahler stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I don't know what piece they're playing when they first pull up to the hospital. I found it a little heavy-handed. It's a little like danger, Will Robinson. Like,
It is.
it's so
It is.
it's so
It's pitched up.
bombastic.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's
And-
a bit much for me.
Yeah, and but I thought like generally this was a very interesting use of music, especially
Yeah.
in the context of Scorsese's greater filmography. I mean, because like many other films of his, including most recently Killers of the Flower Moon, it is supervised by Robbie Robertson of the band, recently passed away. And, you know, like in most cases with the Scorsese movie, I think like Scorsese, in terms of his use of music, is more of a soundtrack guy than a score guy.
Sure.
Yeah.
Yeah. He favors more needle drops.
Yeah. And, you know, there's some great scores in his movies, but, you know, more often you see like Scorsese movies are known for soundtracks. And this is the only case I know of so far where it is a soundtrack movie, but that uses not popular music, that uses modern classical music for the most part.
Sure.
And I mean, there were some really interesting uses here. I was personally, I believe it's music for Marcel Duchamp by John Cage that has kind of those, it just begins with those like big prepared piano thumps.
Mhm.
Like during that scene we discussed earlier where DiCaprio's fading into a dream sequence and you just hear those thumps. I believe that's the piece that's playing there. I thought that was really well used.
Yeah, I would agree.
But then also the scene that or the piece of music that's used maybe the most copiously in this movie is On the Nature of Daylight by Max Richter, which has appeared in a lot of movies. It is used a lot. It was memorably used at the beginning of Arrival. Yeah,
yes.
that piece.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. That makes all the sense in the world. Okay.
Yeah.
Yep.
Also appeared in films such as Jiro Dreams of Sushi.
Oh,
yeah.
that's a beautiful documentary.
It is, yeah.
Yeah. Wait, really?
Yeah.
I'm trying to remember when.
It's kind of like that. I think it's in that portion, like maybe a third of the way through Jiro Dreams of Sushi, where the main chef is describing how like when his kids graduated college, he wouldn't let them come back home because he wanted them to work.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Right. Okay.
it's around
okay.
then.
Okay.
Wow. But yeah, that's a piece that's been used time and again in movies. I mean, there's a lot, like some famous classical pieces that are used again and again to seemingly equal effect. But this is not an old piece. At that time, it was actually pretty new. I think it was released in 2003. But it's really made the rounds in film soundtracks.
Yeah. I mean, it has an undeniable, like a pulse.
Yeah.
To it that I think is sort of almost meant to make you tap into your own racing heart.
Yeah.
You know?
But it's also like it's sad and
yes, it is sad. Yeah.
And it kind of has this adagio for strings vibe.
Yeah.
That like I think most of the times when I hear it for a moment I think, am I hearing adagio for strings? And no, it's On the Nature of Daylight, but I think they scratch a very similar itch.
Cool. Dude.
Yeah.
Good pulls there on the
Thanks.
music stuff. I like that.
Yeah. I just like that this is a soundtrack where the names that come up are things like John Cage and Morton Feldman and John Adams, which you see them in other film soundtracks, but these are it's just nice to see like the modern classical world get this kind of representation.
Yeah.
Modern classical music, and this is a sweeping generalization, but a lot of the stuff that I've heard is meant to almost sort of evoke very primal feelings.
Yeah.
And that I think works very well in a movie like Shutter Island.
Yeah.
Where you're asked to really go with your gut into the film and let your gut kind of be your guide or your compass as you get introduced to new characters or new scenarios and whatnot.
Yeah.
So I totally see how appropriate it is and how well it fits in to creating that kind of atmosphere and that experience for the viewer.
Yeah, and that's just like one of the many great things about this movie that we've gone into.
Yeah, I have to admit, I have come away really enjoying this movie.
Yeah.
To me, I'm going to come back to the Shyamalan comparison you made. This really feels like a high-end version of a Shyamalan film with a really great Leonardo DiCaprio performance.
Yeah.
And a bunch of wonderful supporting roles, which is something I feel like you don't always get in Shyamalan films. I don't know if he's really like known as an actor's director.
Yeah, like I think there are some, like he has some performances obviously that are classic, but oftentimes they're the lead. I think one good ensemble one is
The Village.
The Village is a good ensemble one. Even Old. I don't think you guys have seen Old yet.
Not seen
but I
Old,
actually think that's a pretty decent ensemble because there's not necessarily like a main character of that movie because it focuses on like a family and then some other people who have all ended up on the beach that makes you old.
Yeah, this feels like a really like it feels like the best stuff that he would do, but
Shyamalan is not always consistent.
Yeah, famously not.
As much as I do generally enjoy most of his movies to various extents. But yeah, I mean, I do think that this is kind of like a highbrow version of a Shyamalan movie.
Sure.
In the Scorsese filmography too, it feels like this is, I mean, it's just, aesthetically it's quite different, but on some level it feels like it's on a similar continuum to like some of his really early Paul Schrader collaborations like Taxi Driver or The King of Comedy, where subjectivity is so important in those movies. I think that there's some very similar character drives in those movies, even though visually they take kind of a different form.
Right. I mean, yeah, they do center around ostensibly angry young men.
Yeah.
Trying to make sense of their world.
I'd say that's most Scorsese.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, it may be, really objectively kind of failing in the process, but, convincing themselves they have succeeded.
Yeah, I don't know, man. I considering the fact that I think I came into checking back in on this movie and it really could have gone either way. I think this was really fun rewatch.
Yeah,
agreed.
Totally.
Yeah.
And I think we wanted to maybe wrap up with maybe a new fun segment that we're trying out, which we're calling Unlikely Shared Universe, to try to figure out how, the movie that we watch maybe could connect to another well-known movie, beloved movie.
Or some other characters in it.
Or some other characters in it in some way. I have a couple for this, and Julian, I know you have one. Do you want to go first on this?
This. So Mark Ruffalo's character, we first learn is named Chuck, but we later find out is in fact named Dr. Sheehan. Maybe, this Dr. Sheehan character, as he continues his work at this institution in the 1950s, happens to hear in the news about a certain super soldier named Steve Rogers, who has been named Captain America for his reputation, and he's been kind of genetically engineered to get to this point. And then, through some course of events, Dr. Sheehan himself becomes interested in this procedure, tries to become this superhuman, but the experiment goes horribly wrong, and something does happen to him, but he's not that kind of superhuman, where he just ends up having, he looks normal in most situations, but when he gets really, really angry, he just turns green, he becomes a giant, and, goes on rampages, and people start to call this, I don't know, maybe a Hulk or something.
Yeah, perhaps.
And we are told during this movie that he is a violent man. We
Yeah,
are
we
told
are
this
true.
several times.
Yeah, he says he does not back down from fights, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, and also just as like kind of a given conceit of this game of unlikely shared universe, all these characters are going to go through a name change at some points.
Yeah, exactly.
I would think so as well.
Yeah, so you could argue that Bruce Banner is the name that he assumes when he realizes that he needs to keep this alter ego under wraps and just change his identity and go elsewhere.
Yeah, I mean, it certainly sounds like at this at Shutter Island they perform a lot of very progressive out there techniques, and so it's very possible that his name in the world of mental rehabilitation has been tarnished, perhaps, and maybe he has to reinvent himself in some way.
And then the other unlikely shared universe connection that I can think of, so perhaps this Deputy Warden McPherson he ends up becoming, or maybe this facility is shut down at some point and everyone has to skip town, change their identity. And this Deputy Warden McPherson, he ends up moving out to some family in California, say maybe in the San Francisco area, and he lets some of his unsavory tendencies really abound there. Works, I believe, at I think like a watch factory or something like that, and then ends up becoming
watch factory, yes.
becoming not certain, but his unsavory proclivities end him up being a suspect in the investigation of the Zodiac killer.
Yes, although there would be a slight issue there because isn't Mark Ruffalo one of the investigating the police detectives in that
That's
scene?
true.
But they've each taken on new identities, and they know they're going to blow it for each other. And they're like, I can't expose you because then you're going to expose me. So we're just going to pretend we never met.
And that's why we don't know the true identity of the Zodiac killer.
There we go. There we go.
Yeah, that's all I've got.
I have a couple. The most obvious one for me was as soon as we started this movie, I'm like, why does Teddy hate the water so much? Why does he hate boats? So obviously Teddy had a previous life as Jack, who did Jack from the Titanic, who did not make it to shore with Rose because she would not let him share the door that she was floating on, and he froze to death. But perhaps not. Perhaps he was pulled out of the water and brought back to Boston,
and lives very and carries a lot of resent around the women in his life because of this. Has never been able to have a healthy relationship with women in his life.
Yeah, or with water.
Yeah, or with water, exactly.
I have to say, too, that I think there was a moment when you see DiCaprio up against the edge of the boat railing in Shutter Island where I thought, this is the I'm the king of the world.
This is... yeah. I just thought of one. So halfway around the world, there is a rather large country that is looking for independence from Britain. And there is a well-known to the Western world thinker and political activist who has really become the kind of figurehead for this movement of independence. And he is assassinated in 1949. Because he is deemed possibly too dangerous, and that his nationalistic pride and his also proclivity for peaceful protest might actually become problematic. Now, I'm going to argue that maybe he didn't become assassinated. Maybe he was whisked off to a hospital of some kind and miraculously clung to life. They say that people who have fasted a lot in life, that they are able to, that their body is able to actually subsist on very little. And it's very possible that Mahatma Gandhi actually made it through and survived the assassin's bullet. And maybe rather quickly, and decided, you know what? One of the better ways that I can leave my mark in this world, after faking his own death and becoming a symbol for independence from imperialistic nations, one of the better things he could do is to try to make a dent in the growing problem in America of mental institutions, and so he becomes a doctor and decides to start a practice on Shutter Island and go for some very wide-ranging, very progressive methods of rehabilitation for his patients.
Yeah, and he must like start a great workout routine because he really fills out by the time
he really does.
meet
Yeah,
him.
no, he looks really. I mean, he's got some great living quarters there.
Yeah,
Yeah,
very
I mean,
cozy
to the
life.
point that to the point that Chuck and Teddy start to rethink their own lines of work.
There may be some misdirection of funds in this facility.
That's very true, also. But
and he assumes the name John Cawley in the process.
yes, I of course.
They all have to take a name
Yeah.
change at some point.
I think so. But yeah, he decides to direct his altruism in that direction.
Yeah, I think that's fair. He
Okay.
has a big heart.
He really does.
Yeah.
Yeah, he really does. And I think would be the last person who would want to rob humanity from any individual.
Yeah, exactly.
But
Cool.
unfortunately, didn't quite work out for old Andrew Latis.
That's a shame.
It really is.
The only other quick one I had was, is this island also the island from Lost? Which,
Oh.
and I thought about this when Teddy goes up into the when he goes into the little
caves?
the cave. It's like a cave on a cliff face where he meets the hallucinated Patricia Clarkson,
the
Dr.
Rachel.
Solano.
Yeah.
There's a very similar cave in Lost that you see in, I think, the last season, and it's a very important cave inhabited by a very powerful kind of deity, seems like the wrong word, but very powerful presence that has a lot of control and power over the island. And I was like, I guess, Rachel Solano, like, she's the island's keeper now.
Yeah, very much so.
Yeah.
I'm just going to say one other thing, too, that I got to admit, man, Andrew Latis I think would give Alex Honnold a run for his money.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, talk about scaling Free Solo up
Totally.
the side of
Yeah.
that mountain.
Very impressive.
I mean, with without very much equipment at all, with terrible shoes from, I don't know, he got just sort of the run of the mill sort of orderly wardrobe.
Yeah.
And to scale that mountain and
And
that
it had
cliffside,
been-
I mean, the cliffside,
and it had been
unreal.
like storming for
Oh, yeah.
days, so it's wet.
Wet, awful, and still made it.
Yeah.
I gotta hand it to him.
Maybe-
That's special.
Yeah, it's up there with John Voight in Deliverance, who had to actually climb that rock wall. The last unlikely shared universe connection I can make very quickly is that maybe this patient Peter Breen at Shutter Island is in fact incarcerated communist spy Klaus Fuchs, who was imprisoned for leaking details of the Manhattan Project to the Soviet Union while at Los Alamos.
I mean, what am I trying to say?
They're unlikely but not impossible.
They're unlikely, but not impossible. There is a fraction of a possibility that these things could actually have taken place. Guys, this is a lot of fun.
Always is.
Yeah, agreed.
And I feel like Shutter Island is is gonna hang out in my mind rent free for a little while.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Totally.
Do we talk about what movie we're doing next, or movies?
Oh,
Yeah.
absolutely.
Up
Yeah.
next, we have what we are calling a two-shot, which is, in essence, a double feature, two very similar movies. Maybe one might not have thought to put together initially. And, well, Emilio, do you want to take this one away?
Yeah, I'll take this one because this one sort of is maybe closer to sort of suggestion box here. But these are two movies that I kind of threw out there. We're going to take a look at Steven Shainberg's 2002 film Secretary, that is maybe best known for its breakout performance by Maggie Gyllenhaal. And we're also going to look at, I believe it was released in 1990, but the film Atame, which is also known as Tie Me Up, Tie Me Down by Pedro Almodovar, which is going to be the first foreign film I think that we're going to be discussing.
I'm very excited for that.
But we're gonna talk about those movies and where perceptions of sanity, and kind of can lead conversations about those two films, Secretary and Tie Me Up, Tie Me Down. I am very interested in how this conversation is going to go. And I have a longstanding personal relationship with the movie Secretary. And I'm excited. I'm excited to get into that one. And and we'll do that in a couple weeks.
Yeah, both of those movies are new for me, so I'm excited too.
Yeah, they're new for me as well. I've watched several other Almodovars, but this is the first time with this one, so I'm very excited.
Yeah.
Cool. Wonderful. Well, this has been the Sleepless Cinematic Podcast. And thank you guys so much for listening. And we look forward to hanging out in your ears again very soon.